Hey guys, welcome to a special episode of Frame Tracers today. We're gonna do. I know I said the previous three were gonna be a three-part series, but we're gonna do a fourth part here, kind of related to the previous three videos. We're gonna do. We're gonna take the 3300X benchmarks that we got. We're gonna take the IDA 64 latency, bandwidth, core cache latency. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take a 9900K, clock it to 4.5 gigahertz, and I'm going to try and match the memory bandwidth, the latency, and the core-to-core latency as, like, I'm going to try and make it as close as possible on every single one of those fields. So the idea is, if the latency is matched, if the core clock is matched, if the cache is matched, like if everything is equal in every single category, then the only thing that remains is the IPC between the architectures. So I'm going to try, that's what today's video is going to be about. I'm going to try and strictly do an IPC test of a 4-core Skylake and a 4-core 3300X. And the objective of this in the end is going to be what's going to happen with Ryzen 4000 when we get 8 cores of 8 cores on one CCX. So theoretically, if the 3300X, I'll do another benchmark as well. Actually, I just thought about it. I'll do one at like 5.2 gigahertz as well, just for kicks. Then we can see a 5.2 gigahertz quad core with the same latency, and then we'll do 3300X, what the numbers that we had before. That way we can kind of paint a picture of what's gonna happen with Ryzen 4000 when we have 8 cores on one CCX and all the other numbers matching. Then we can kind of take X number of percent IPC over what Skylake has at the same memory bandwidth, latency, cache, etc., etc., etc. And then we should be able to decipher what kind of gaming performance we'll get out of those chips. I think September or October they're coming out here. Anyway, I'm gonna go grab the my 9900K box. I'm gonna bring it down here. And then I'm going to try and match everything up, and I'll be right back. All right, we're back into Windows here. Let me bring up the 3300X numbers. I moved my camera up a little bit just so I could close the background tasks so the readings are accurate. If you have like Steam or BattleNet open or something like that, it'll actually throw your memory latency numbers off by quite a few milliseconds. I mean, that stuff still draws instructions even though it's idling. It's pretty crazy. Cache memory benchmark. So we got 4 cores at 4.5 gigahertz. CPU clock 4. Why is it doing that? That's not what I said at all. That's weird. All right. Maybe after I set the settings to... Oh, that's pretty close, though. Maybe after I set the settings to only enable 4 cores, it reset my my core clock for some reason. That's kind of weird. Northbridge, 4 gigahertz as well. Although the latency is pretty close, though. 0.9, 2.7. Hey, that's actually pretty damn close already. I just gotta reduce this latency a bit, increase the bandwidth. L3 cache. It's a bit slower on this one. Alright, let's see what we can do here. So I have to... That's interesting. I have to like increase the bandwidth, but loosen out my timings like crazy to try and match these numbers. Probably lower the... Probably have to Actually, the ring clock is probably almost bang on at 4 gigahertz. I'll probably just set it at that. CPU core 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's go back and try this again. I'll try increasing the RAM to 37, 33 with loose ass timings and 4.5. Let's see what we can do here. All right, this is attempt number 120. I don't even know. I've literally been at this for like 3 hours, and this is the closest that I could get it. Even though the bandwidth is lower on the Intel chip, look at this gong show of settings that I had to, and I had to go into sub timings to get this. I literally could not get the damn chip to 60 nanoseconds without dropping the bandwidth to 26. It's impossible. You can't do it. So we're just gonna go with this. This is literally the best that I could do. And if I dropped the ring clock too far, it actually dropped the read bandwidth in correlation with it, and it also dropped the L3 cache time as well. So I couldn't actually drop that too far without wrecking the cache one. And yeah, I don't know. Long story short, gong show. But this is the settings we're gonna go with. 4.5 gigahertz. I got it to about 60 nanoseconds. Both CPUs have 16 megs of cache. And let's just run it like this, and then we'll see what happens. Because that's yeah, it is what it is. Alright, we're back. So I got the benchmark numbers here. I'm not going to post them up in graphs this time because I don't want to mix and mingle those numbers with the graphs that I have before, because that'll just pollute the data. Because it's not, the testing methodology was not the same for these at all. This was just a one-time video specific for this test. So I'm gonna bring up the notepad here. Let me just do this. Move this display. So these are the results that we got. This is the 3300X 4.5. This is the 9900K set to 4 cores 4.5, both at 60 nanoseconds of latency. So when we run Cinebench R15, the 4-core Skylake 967 points, the Ryzen 1189. That's a 22% performance increase. That's all IPC. That has nothing to do with anything else. That's just straight IPC across these chips. Firestrike, smaller margin. Honestly, I'm not sure why that is, but it's only 11%. Time Spy, 18%. Now, this is the one that doesn't make any sense at all. Warzone. There was a 29% performance increase on the Ryzen chip than there was the Intel one. Which, that doesn't make any sense at all. And unless the Ryzen chip was more efficient at doing some sort of instruction that that Call of Duty utilizes, but that's definitely an outlier. Overwatch was the same. Fortnite was more or less the same. 5% here and there. And then I also tested Strange Brigade and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. They were all the same. All the other games tested were all the same, pretty much. So, the conclusion for this is the Ryzen chips actually do have about, well, let's just say, between the synthetic benchmarks, 19%, 18% better IPC over a Skylake chip. Of everything else being equal, the cache size, the lag, the latency, the core speed, everything being equal, it has about 18% better. In gaming, this seems to vary wildly. I don't know. I've tested 6 games, not on here. But Warzone was the only one that actually had a huge difference to it. All the other ones were within 5% of each other. Always in favor of the Ryzen chip, though. So, when it comes to gaming, IPC doesn't scale that well. But notice these games, actually, I just noticed, Strange Brigade, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, PUBG, Fortnite, Overwatch, those games are all games from yesteryear, right? Warzone is new. So what does that tell you? That IPC might not scale today or yesterday, but tomorrow it will, right? It's only a matter of time before the instructions and the commands can actually utilize those instructions. So, let me just pan back to the camera here. We'll say, for argument's sake, about 18% is what I could calculate. So, what will that mean for Ryzen 4000? Pretty good things, I think. So, let's say what we can extrapolate from this is a 4-core CCX equal to 4 cores on Skylake is about 20% better, right? Right now with Zen 2. So then what we can say is if there was an 8-core CCX, even Zen 2, we'll just forget the IPC for now, an 8-core Zen 2 with 1 CCX would perform 20% better than a 9900K at 4.5 gigahertz with the same latency, though. That's the caveat there, you know what I mean? But that's where Ryzen 4000 comes in. So let's say they have 8-core CCX. Let's say we can get all core to 4.7 optimistically. Let's say all core 4.6 because that's what the XT chips are doing. 4.6, let's say the fabric clock can get to 2 or 2.1, you know what I mean? Let's say we can get the latency down to like 50 or 52, 53. You're going to have two bona fide 9900Ks in one chip. That's going to be awesome, I think. I think so. I mean, assuming everything scales perfectly, like from the numbers that we had here, you know what I mean? And by scaling, I mean there is a big but in there. Like, but we're talking games of the future. So we saw in those benchmarks, synthetic benchmarks, 20%. Warzone, something's going on there. I'm going to have to do some research on that game engine. Why is that game scaling so well with IPC and all the other ones aren't? I mean, the other ones we know were, they were written 2-3 years ago now. So Ryzen back then, we were in the Ryzen 1000 series, so it didn't scale. But Warzone's recent. Something about that game is making it scale. So let's assume 4950X, 2 8 cores. So a game like Warzone written in this time, like the present, you know what I mean? You're going to have two 9900Ks working on the jobs of the game. If you got older games like Overwatch, Fortnite, PUBG, the ones that don't scale with IPC, the 10900K will probably still win that one just because it's still going to clock to 5.3 gigahertz and the Zen 3s won't, right? So, but that doesn't mean they're not going to do their job well. It still gets 300 FPS. It doesn't matter, you know what I mean? It's just food for thought that once games are actually coded with wider IPCs in mind, it's almost like Ryzen kind of started like this, kind of goes flat, and now that we're approaching 2020 programming of games, it's going to start doing this. And it's almost like the whole AMD fine wine all over again, you know what I mean? It's like, why does it always get better with time? Because, well, GCN back in the day had async compute in, what, 2009 or something like that, something crazy. And async compute didn't start happening till like 2 years ago with DX12 and Vulkan. So, same kind of situation here where those massive IPC and branch prediction increases that they got going on there, it's going to start doing this as time goes on, you know what I mean? So they're going to age much better, but they're going to age forward. They're not going to age backwards. So if you are a retro gamer, emulation, those type of things, you're always going to kind of want to keep an Intel old Skylake chip on hand. You never want to get rid of those, you know what I mean? I know I used to watch this guy called The Good Old Gamer. I don't think he does YouTube anymore, but I liked his content a lot. And he's a retro gamer, and he had a Zen 2 chip, and there was one game that he couldn't actually get to boot. I can't remember what it was. It was Alan Wake or Hitman 1 or something weird like that. He was retro gaming, and he noticed that on his Ryzen 1600 or whatever, it worked fine. And on his 3600, it didn't work at all. It wouldn't even boot. And that's going to keep happening as the architectures move forward and the games are written moving forward. And when retro like they're not going to work anymore. Like, it's not going to happen. I'm probably going to buy a 10900K, and I'm going to keep that chip forever. Just because we don't know if Rocket Lake is going to have the same problem as Zen does. We don't know. Like, just being x86 isn't good enough. But we know that Skylake is going to go all the way back to like the 90s of games and work just fine. So I'm going to get a 10900K, I believe, and I'm going to keep that forever on hand just so I can always go back and play whatever game I want and never have compatibility issues. You know what I mean? Same with emulators. Same with anything ancient. You know what I mean? And then moving forward, you're probably gonna want the Ryzen systems for now. Those big IPC increases, that's only gonna get better with time. Also, I know I said I would do 5.2 gigahertz on the 9900K with 4 cores. Couldn't get it to work. Couldn't do it. Every time I increase the core that high, it reduced the latency so much that it was impossible for me to reach 60 nanoseconds. So I would put 5.2 gigahertz on the cores, and then that would drop my nanoseconds to like 50. And those timings that you saw in the RAM, those were actually the maximum values that the motherboard let me put in for those RAM sticks. Like, I couldn't get that, couldn't get it any looser whatsoever. If I dropped the megahertz, the bandwidth went down, obviously. If I dropped the ring core clock, bandwidth went down, latency went up, but then I lost a bunch of L3 nanoseconds. So, the best settings I could have found wouldn't have even been within like 15-20% of what it should have been. It would have been a pointless test. It just couldn't do it. Like, even the 4.4 was the best that I could actually get. But let me conclude this. So to conclude all this, fourth video in, keep a Skylake chip on hand if you ever think about playing old games, old DOSBox games. Like, you never know. Just keep a Skylake chip on hand. Never let that go, because I think moving forward now, let's say with 3D stacking, IPC increases, all this weird rigmarole of technology that's going to be happening here, we might not ever be able to go back to, like everyone always gives Intel so much flack for keeping the same architecture for 10 years or whatever. There are pros to doing that as well. The pros being nothing will ever stop working. You know what I mean? And that reality is gonna come to a halt very soon, where new stuff is gonna start working and old stuff isn't, and it's gonna get worse with time. More cores are gonna be more valuable with time, more IPC, more multi-threading, etc., etc. So I think I've said all I wanted to say on this. Let's call it here with all these Ryzen Intel comparison videos. Yeah, I think that's it. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the content. I'm trying to hit 100. I would really appreciate it if you could help me out by hitting that subscribe button. Like and share and comment down below if you have any questions. Join us over in the Discord if you want to play some games or talk tech over there. Would love to play some games. Catch me on Facebook Gaming. Look up Jufus de Beckett. I usually play Warzone and Overwatch, but starting to get into that Hyperscape game a little bit. It's fun. Like, it is a fast-paced game, and I'm starting to dig it. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. We're gonna probably change the pace up a little bit on the next one. I'm not sure what I have on the schedule is, and I have some other parts coming in, so we'll see. But I'll have another video up real soon after this one, and then we're gonna start with some new content. All right, thanks for joining me, guys. I'll talk to you later. See you later.